Good evening. I would like to welcome you all to the 11th Annual Lieutenant Governor's Award for the advancement of interreligious understanding. My name is Payam Tawfiq, President of Manitoba Multi-Faith Council. Manitoba Multi-Faith Council, or MMC, is a charitable organization with the purpose of promoting interfaith dialogue and understanding. We aspire to foster discourse in our communities, to promote collaboration between people of faith, and to build a just, outward-looking, and caring society. We hope our work would contribute to a city and a province rich with diversity while committing to the common good in our communities. This is the second year that we all have been facing many challenges in our lives because of the COVID pandemic. Once again, we had to move this ceremony from taking place in the elegant government house on the grounds of our legislative building to an online platform. Nevertheless, we are very excited to host a terrific and meaningful program that I'm sure would bring a bit of warmth during this time of the year and during these challenging times. At this point, I would like to ask Bel Jernieski, MMC past president, to share the land acknowledgement statement with us. Bel, please.
Thank you, Payam. The Manitoba Multi-Faith Council acknowledges that we gather on Treaty 1 land in the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota peoples, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. We acknowledge the harms and mistakes of the past, and we dedicate ourselves to move forward in partnership with Indigenous communities in a spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. May we live with respect on this land and live in peace and friendship with its peoples. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Ray Harris, Secretary of the Manitoba Multi-Faith Council.
Thank you, Bel, and good evening, friends. You will be aware that awards of any kind have a very rich history. The Grey Cup, which was recently won by our own Winnipeg Blue Bombers, has a rich history as a trophy. The Lieutenant Governor's Award that we are going to confer tonight also has a very fascinating and rich history in this province. If we go back to the year 2006, Professor Alberto Malini was scheduled to visit Winnipeg, and the purpose of his visit at that time was to bring with him the Holocaust journals of Pope John XXIII. The Pope had liberated many Jews from the Nazis during the war. When Professor James Christie of the University of Winnipeg recognized that this was happening, he saw it as an opportunity not only to acknowledge these important journals, but perhaps to honor individuals in Winnipeg who had embodied some of these interreligious values of the professor. And so in consultation with the Lieutenant Governor at that time, John Harvard, an award was given, plaques were given to a Jew, a Muslim, and a Roman Catholic. This gesture was so well received that the concept of an annual award was created. Since the year 2011, strong support has been given to this award by the Lieutenant Governors in office at that time. His Honor, Philip Lee, and now Her Honor, Janice Philman. In the year 2017, the award was placed into the institutional home of the Manitoba Multi-Faith Council. Now, while awards might have similarities, there's an important difference between the Grey Cup and the Lieutenant Governor's Award for Interreligious Understanding. When the Winnipeg Blue Bombers begin the season, their eye is on the award, on the trophy. They compete for it. Those who win this particular Lieutenant Governor's Award for Interreligious Understanding likely have little awareness that the award exists, but they are so convinced of the values of the award that they go ahead and embody it with their lives. To give us a greater understanding of this, I'd like to invite my colleague Christine Baromans to come and share a bit of the character of the award about to be conferred.
Thank you, Ray, and good evening, guests and nominee, Mr. Millar. I wish to take a few minutes at this time to outline the nomination process for this annual award. The Lieutenant Governor's Award for the Advancement of Interreligious Understanding begins with nominations from any person within the province of Manitoba. The individual nominated is active in their faith community and through involvement in the broader community, through education, media, cultural arts, service to the arts and cultural engagement, has made a significant contribution to interreligious understanding and harmony within the province. Nomination forms can be obtained through the Manitoba Multi-Faith Council, which serves as the institutional home of this award, and it can be granted to those that are in a volunteer capacity or working professionally in an area. Since its inception, this award has been graced by such persons as the musician Zane Zalis, former university president Dr. Lloyd Axworthy, columnist Karen Toole, former chief of police Devon Clunas, successful interfaith project collaborators Manju Loda and Ray Dirks, manager of Operation Ezra, the multi-faith supported Yazidi refugee program, Michelle Aziza, manager, and Buddhist leader and dedicated interfaith relationship builder, Sensi Fred Ulrich. And our most recent 2020 recipient is Winnipeg Free Press faith reporter and faith reporting expansion project coordinator, Mr. John Longhurst. Some of these recipients have been designated religious leaders and others lay people. Each in their own way have made significant contributions to interreligious understanding and harmony within the province of Manitoba. We express our gratitude and appreciation to a succession of lieutenant governors, John Harvard, Philip Lee, and now Her Honor, Janice Fillman, for endorsing this award. We are also grateful for the hard work of individuals who have paved the way for this award and for now finally placing it in the institutional home of the Manitoba Multi-Faith Council. It is now my pleasure to welcome Mr. Gareth Neufeld and invite him to introduce the 2021 Lieutenant Governor's Award recipient for the advancement of interreligious understanding, Mr. Neufeld.
Thank you, Christine. Good evening, Your Honor, members of the Manitoba Multi-Faith Council, and what I see is over 100 friends and acquaintances who have joined us this evening. I feel honored to have this opportunity to introduce Bill Millar, the recipient of today's award. I first met Bill about 20 years ago when he became our interim minister at Augustine United Church. And it didn't take long for me to recognize and be drawn to his remarkable openness and curiosity. You could see it in each encounter he had with others, regardless of their cultural or even religious identity. Spending time with him deepened my own understanding that the Creator's Spirit can't be confined by the boundaries of theological frameworks or rigid dogmas. So when Bill left his one-year interim ministry at Augustine, I was keen to try and stay in touch with him, especially after he began his work at Knox United. You know, in many ways, Knox and its neighborhood formed the perfect setting for Bill to express his particular vision for ministry. In the last 20 or 30 years, the area around Central Park has become one of Canada's most diverse neighborhoods, and it would be that multicultural environment in which Bill's vision for an open, respectful, and inclusive community would thrive in profound ways. Not long after Bill's arrival at Knox in 2004, his way of doing ministry sent a signal to all the members of the wider community that Knox would belong to them, not just to those in the congregation. I had a delightful conversation with Melrose Koine, who is the director of the Winnipeg Central Park Women's Resource Center. She described how Bill has been a crucial role model to many in the Central Park community. Ms. Koine told me how community residents watched Bill reach across faith, cultural and racial boundaries in respectful and authentic ways, so that many others were encouraged to do the same. We're new in Canada, Ms. Koine explained, and we need people to look up to. Pastor Bill provides an example of how we want to be as newcomers, as new Canadians. Vin Hewen, who is the principal at Gordon Bell these days, described Bill to me as engaging in true servant leadership by opening up space for other worshiping communities. Under Bill's leadership, Knox became a place for intercultural, interreligious gathering, he told me. And he emphasized though that Knox was never envisioned as, nor did it ever become, a melting pot. A number of years ago, Mr. Hewen was principal at Hugh John Macdonald School, a public school not far from Knox, and it has students from around the globe. It's a school in which many, many languages from around the world are spoken. On one of the school's professional development days, Mr. Hewen arranged for the school staff to have a learning tour at Knox. During the tour, Bill shared Knox's vision of cross-cultural understanding. He pointed to an image mounted on the wall, which illustrated the astonishingly wide range of groups who gathered at Knox on any given day, in any given week. The tour that day inspired the school's teachers. Mr. Hewen believes that Hugh John Macdonald became an intercultural center of its own, in part because of Bill's influence. In these patient and organic efforts over time, relationships were built and trust within the community deepened, resulting in new collaborative initiatives. Of the many positive results, perhaps the most significant is that the whole area around Central Park became safer and more welcoming. We shouldn't forget that this was not long after 9/11, when many Canadians were uncertain, some even fearful of Muslims. But Bill, during this pivotal time, sought closer connections with Central Mosque and Islamic social services. Other important developments over the years have included the organization of a Central Park market, a church mosque picnic, Winnipeg Central Park Women's Resource Center, a community kitchen, and an interfaith sewing cooperative, to just mention a few. As Ms. Koine spoke of these many exciting developments with great enthusiasm, she wanted to be sure that I understood clearly that participants of all these various programs are not visitors at Knox. They're not visitors, she said emphatically. Knox is their place. And then she added that Pastor Bill took great care that all voices, all groups were heard during each of the planning stages for these projects. And then in 2015, when the Manitoba Islamic Association hoped to expand its services to downtown Winnipeg, current board chairperson, Dr. Idris El Bakri, worked with Bill to purchase the attached building next door. Dr. El Bakri told me that from the outset, Bill was very supportive of the idea of having a Muslim and a Christian organization collaborate side by side. He remembered that he and Bill sometimes laughed about how great it would be when somebody intending to visit the church ended up in the mosque or the other way around. Bill retired just over 4 years ago and was awarded the United Church's McGeechee Senior Scholarship. This scholarship enabled Bill to conduct research into the nuts and bolts of interculturalism, particularly as it relates to Canada's rapidly changing cultural environment. Results of Bill's research can now be heard in Open Out, an excellent podcast that he produced and hosts. And frankly, I'd encourage you to add it to your list of favorite podcasts. I think you'll find it interesting. Here is how Open Out describes its focus, and I quote, "Open Out helps individuals and faith communities discover the possibilities and challenges of intentionally opening outwards, welcoming a much broader group of people including those with very different cultural backgrounds. End quote. In 2018, at a conference at Canadian Mennonite University, Bill described the diversity that has emerged around Central Park and explained to his audience that that diversity reflects what's happening all across Canada. Bill made it clear that day that people of faith need to pay attention to this profound shift in our cultural landscape. And he proposed that as people of faith encounter those of other faiths and cultures, that they be guided by a spirit of what he called deep welcome. Bill captured the essence of deep welcome with these concluding words, and I want to conclude with them as well. And I quote, "We welcome you as you are, to be part of us as we are, knowing that in the process, we will all be changed," end quote. I'm sure all of you agree that it is exactly this kind of generous and welcoming spirit that will truly advance interreligious understanding. And it's a spirit that makes Bill a most worthy recipient of this award. I congratulate you, Bill, and thank you.
Thank you, Garrett, for those thoughtful words. At this point, I would like to introduce to you Manitoba Lieutenant Governor, the Honorable Janice C. Philman.
People of faith, carriers of light, builders of community, it is a pleasure to join you virtually in a new year for this celebration of a career of bringing people together. It is my pleasure to welcome you today from Government House, located in the heart of Treaty 1 land, the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe and the homeland of the Métis people. Here, we strive for respectful partnerships with all the peoples of this province as we search for collective healing and true reconciliation and honor this beautiful land together. What better way to honor this beautiful land and support collective healing than the kind of work recognized by the Lieutenant Governor's Award for Advancement of Interreligious Understanding. In his work at Knox United Church, in his partnerships with Winnipeg's Muslim community and the very diverse Hugh John Macdonald School, in his advocacy for the development of the city's Central Park, Bill Millar has been guided by the understanding that when we accept one another and work together, we are all changed in the process. Just as physics teaches us that each body in the universe exerts a force on every other, so an understanding of humanity teaches us that we all are influenced by one another. Each of us has the ability to lead others by living with integrity, compassion, and dedication, and in turn, each of us responds to the leadership of others around us. When we share our vision and our pathway to a better world, we all learn and grow. At Knox United Church, and before that at the Winnipeg Church of the Deaf, Bill inspired and empowered countless others in his congregations and beyond to greater understanding and more faithful cooperation. He joins a list of great Manitobans who have received this award since its establishment in 2010. Let's all honor the meaningful, outstanding contributions by Bill Millar and his fellow award recipients by continuing in our own way to build understanding among our fellow men and women. Congratulations, Bill, and thank you for your contributions to Manitoba and to the world.
Paul, you're on next to read the citation.
It is indeed my distinct honor and privilege as a former colleague of Bill's and someone that I met before I even moved to Winnipeg 20 years ago. It is my honor and privilege to read the citation as articulated by Her Honor, the Lieutenant Governor. Bill Millar, recipient of the Lieutenant Governor's Award for the Advancement of Interreligious Understanding in recognition of his significant service to the citizens of Manitoba as a builder of bridges between faith and ethno-cultural communities. Through his work in the Central Park neighborhood, he has created a sense of unity and a commitment to the diversity of its inhabitants. Dated this January the 11th, 2022.
Your Honor, excuse me, members of the Manitoba Multi-Faith Council, Gareth. When Gareth said he wanted to nominate me for this award, I thought he was a little bit crazy. So many others, and many of you who are online here, have worked tirelessly to build interfaith understanding. So I was doubly surprised then when I got the call and figured out that A, it really was the Lieutenant Governor on the phone calling me and not some prank by a friend, and B, that I was the recipient. My first thought was, Gareth, that guy must be a heck of a letter writer. I am deeply honored by this award, and I receive it with gratitude on behalf of a community that was and is instinctively both intercultural and interfaith. You know, we are wherever we are and we accomplish whatever we accomplish, often not so much because of who we are as individuals, but because of those who have gone before, on whose shoulders we stand, and because of those around us, our companions, especially those nearest to us. I've been remarkably fortunate to have been married to a most remarkable woman, Mary. I could not have asked for a greater companion, even on the rougher bits of the journey. And we have two remarkable daughters, Kristen and Allison, each different, both deeply good, kind, resilient. Together with them, I want to acknowledge one other remarkable companion, my mother, Kay, also deeply good, kind, and resilient. Together, they've grounded me and given me a base on which to stand, to move. Excuse me. In the early 1900s, the poet Rilke, German poet, wrote, "Everything will be strong once again. The land unpretentious, the waters wrinkled. Trees will be tall and walls will be small. And in the valleys, a strong and diverse community of common people, of shepherds and farmers. No churches to encircle and capture God like a fugitive and then wail, lamenting him like a trapped and wounded animal. Instead, all houses open to all who knock. A sense of unlimited offering in all relations, in you, in me. No waiting for the beyond, no peering after it, no longing even to defile death itself. Instead, we'll practice being useful to the earth, so we will not be unfamiliar to her hands. Trees tall, walls small, all houses open to everyone who knocks. You know, there's an old rabbinic teaching, it dates back at least the 13th century CE, I believe, that Abraham's tent was open on all four sides so that anyone could enter. Basically, that's what happened. When I went to Knox in 2004, it was a small congregation in a huge building, about 80% older Euro-Canadians, and a few of the traditional Japanese congregation remain. I was brought in to help renew the church, but I had no idea how to do that. A group of us met weekly to explore that idea, to share pizza and prayer, trying to discover what God wanted. Months later, we were all really sick of pizza, but we were no further ahead on the vision. And so we adopted a few simple maxims. One, we have no idea really what God wants us to do. Two, but we're pretty sure God does. And three, and likely God wants us to know that. So four, at this point, the most likely way for that to happen is it will just walk through the door. Five, and so we will be open to any idea that just happens to walk in. It felt almost like we were giving up, but it really was a turning point. That's basically how everything started. Space, well, we had that in abundance. Space that the community around us could use. Central Park, as many of you will know, is a high density, urban, low income neighborhood of immigrants and refugees, mostly new arrivals. And then somehow people and their ideas started to walk in. Janet Hirose arrived first. She'd grown up at Knox and she felt drawn somehow to come back. She became the heart and soul of pretty much everything that happened after that. Mehran Kalla, a brilliant, passionate Somali activist, actress, and now stand-up comedian, showed up with a movie that she and other members of the Somali community in Winnipeg had made on their experience as refugees. Sally Y from Sierra Leone and Otello Z from Liberia walked in. I can't quite remember why or how. And Sally began working on a center for newcomer women with a sewing co-op. Melrose Koine joined her and our space began being transformed. Otello led up the market. Now, I said before that Knox really didn't have any ideas of our own. It's not true. We did have one. We had this idea of a cafe built outside the building. It was a good idea. It didn't happen. When we took it to the community, they said, a cafe, well, nah, maybe not so much. But a market, yeah, that's what we need, a market. African style, a mixed market where someone who had just arrived and had anything at all that they wanted to be able to sell, they could start immediately selling something, earning some income, being part of the community. Raymond Garbui from Chad walked in, and he was skilled in gardens and farming, and he had this idea that newcomers could start growing their own vegetables for their families, for themselves, or to sell in the market. And so Rainbow Community Garden was formed. There were so many great characters, people. I'm so blessed. Fafa Bodigan from Sudan, indomitable. Abdul Said from Kenya, originally from Sudan, and so many others. Out of the market and garden grew Knox Community Kitchen was born. It was a space for newcomers and others to start their own food-related businesses. Then a few years later, one Sunday, Danberg Kodka arrived. Now, he walked in the door too, but he said that door was really, really heavy. He was with Sumitra, his wife, and their kids. And the next thing we knew, a large group of folk, of Nepali-speaking Bhutanese folk, Christians, mostly some Hindus, who'd been 20 years in the camps arrived. And they added a whole new flavor to the mix. So being intercultural or interfaith, that was never the goal per se. It's just that that's what our neighborhood was. In Central Park, everybody, it seemed, was from somewhere different. We estimated that about a third of the community were Muslim. I remember a young Nadia Kidway phoned me once to ask if the Muslim women's group could use the church basement, because that's where so many of the newcomer Muslim women were most comfortable. And that didn't seem odd. In the wake of 9/11, we had a church and mosque picnic together with Central Mosque. Omar Siddiqui must have cooked a couple of thousand halal wieners that day. I suspect this led in part to his decision to pursue law rather than promising career as a short order cook. The Christian community called Knox United began to change too. Moving from about 80% Euro-Canadian to about 80% newcomer, racialized, whatever term you like. Knox, though, was bigger than that worshiping community. And that's why folk like Mayran, herself a Muslim, could say, Knox is my church. And we all understood exactly what she meant. That the concept of Knox was larger than the Christian community that was worshiping there. Well, this idea wasn't necessarily as easy for some of our friends in the broader church to recognize, including some of our denominational higher-ups. And you see, we couldn't explain it very well because, well, we were just too busy trying to do it. Recently, when a few of us were asked, we were on a panel at an intercultural training event, and the leader asked the group, so why do you think it worked at Knox when it doesn't work in so many other places when it fails? It was Raymond who answered. And he said, when I first arrived in Canada, I lived in an apartment that looked out over Central Park. Then one Saturday morning, I saw the old priest from the church. And he was picking up needles and condoms in the park. The park was a little rougher in those years, very much rougher. And I thought to myself, oh, that is something I could do. I can go and help that old priest pick up the needles and the condoms. And I was sitting there thinking, what is Raymond talking about? And then I understood. The folk who had arrived here as refugees were naturally often recipients of services and had a sense of themselves as almost always being in need and being helped. But here they were not recipients, they were producers. They were operating not out of need, but out of strength. And that marked a part of the difference. Now, we in the church, almost paradoxically, we actually were kind of operating out of need. You see, we needed them. We needed the community. What we had was space in abundance and a commitment to make that space available for the community to use in any way that it wants. Like Abraham's tent. As church leaders, we began to re-recognize that we were not owners of the building. We were, church word, stewards, caretakers, custodians. The building, the church, well, that belonged to God and the community. Much to our surprise and sometimes to our chagrin, the community believed us, believed that we meant it. You know, it's probably worth noting that quelling fear, suspending control needs in order to believe this took great courage actually on the part of the Knox church leaders. And I am deeply grateful to them. The other thing worth noting is that as a church, Knox, we, like the community, were poor, like really poor. We couldn't afford paper. Once I remember when the internet or the phone or something that Otello needed broke down, I apologized to him. He said, no, Bill, that's why we're comfortable here. The phones don't work, the internet stuff breaks down. It's just like being back home. We all know that Knox isn't really part of the first world. And so in a profound sense, then, we were equals. More than that, we depended, we in the church, we depended on them, the community, the neighborhood. We needed them to help us, be the best us, the us that we felt we were called to be. Yeah. Maybe being poor, maybe it was a bit of a blessing, creates a kind of an urgency to life. Maybe if you're too comfortable, you can ponder whether or not you actually agree with somebody else's view on the Bible or something, or another faith community's diet. We had no time for such thoughts. It's like a Red River flood, and we were sandbagging. Now, when you're sandbagging, you don't start questioning the philosophical framework of the bagger next to you. You don't think, what's that person's view? You just pass the bag to each other. You work together. We were building neighborhood together. All of us, whatever our faith background. And along the way, we were joined by other people who believed in the possibilities, believed in the neighborhood. Business people, architects, funders, people who supported the community reshaping of the neighborhood. There was such remarkable generosity and goodwill. Remember the head of the Forks calling the head of Hydro to get power in the park for the market. So all of this led to a $5.6 million investment in revitalizing the park. 1 million of that came from Jerry Gray and his family. One person. At the reopening of the park, I remember saying to Jerry, who is Jewish, it's wonderful that you have done this. We have people from all over the world, but Jerry, if there's even one Jewish family in the neighborhood, I haven't met them yet. He looked at me, smiled broadly, and he said, I know. He passed away soon after that. His daughter, Deb, said at his funeral, he was never happier than seeing covered women playing with their kids in the park that he had funded. Maimonides would have smiled. Interfaith then wasn't our goal. Neighborhood was. Being neighbors, reclaiming space. That impulse has continued, strengthened after I left, with the Manitoba Islamic Association moving in and creating this unified Christian-Muslim center. And anyways, about that poor stuff, the people there, they were only poor in money. They were rich in so many other ways, rich in character, in wisdom. I remember early on, after some adventure, talking with two wonderful older Somali women. Older, I'm probably older than them now, but they were older to me at that time. Asili and Jamad. We had done, something had happened, and Jamad looked at me and said, Mr. Bill, for some reason, I was always Mr. Bill in the Somali community. But anyways, Mr. Bill, you are such a good man. If only you were Muslim, you would go to paradise with your boots on. Well, Asili was upset. She was enraged. She said, you can't say that to Mr. Bill. That would be like saying, Mr. Bill saying, Jamad, you are such a good woman. If only you accepted Jesus, you could go to heaven wearing your hijab. And then she looked at me and said, Mr. Bill, Christian, Muslim, little different. God, same. She was, of course, right. Nisha had just recently arrived, a young girl born in the refugee camps in Nepal. And Abdul, and I remember I mentioned Abdul before, from Kenya. Abdul and I were standing beside one another. She looked up at us and asked, are you guys brothers? Now, both Abdul and I have bald heads. God gave me mine. I think a razor might have given Abdul his. And I'm about as white as you can see. I'm about as white as the belly of a pike, northern pike. And Abdul is at the other end of the skin tone continuum. So what is it that she saw? Our bald heads, maybe. Our relationship, maybe. We looked at each other and both answered, yeah, we are brothers. And then Abdul asked how she knew. And she simply said, I thought so. I thought you guys were brothers. She wasn't distracted by skin tone, or Muslim Christian differences. She understood more deeply. And she was right, of course. We are. I am very grateful to receive this award as a witness to what a neighborhood can be together, fully diverse, all kinds of different faiths and perspectives, and what a community can accomplish when people do good together, when they focus on that. Prophet Mike understood, God's shown you what is right. This is what the Creator wants, for you to do justice, to love kindness, and to walk humbly with your God. These words could basically be probably from any religion, because we pretty much all agree on the doing part. Maybe we should explore those philosophical nuances, but not right away. Let's wait until after we have achieved that justice, that loving kindness, until we have righted those wronged relationships, created lasting peace. Until then, let's keep working. This award is, I believe, testimony to the sacred history of this area. At the junction of the Red and the Assiniboine, where for hundreds, perhaps thousands of years, nations of people have come together for commerce, trade, ceremony, and conversation, mutual aid, a place of meeting. Sacred indeed is such a heritage. Isn't it wonderful to have an award like this, to celebrate such a sacred thing, meeting, mutual understanding? On behalf of so many then, I thank you, the council, for envisioning something so unique and important as this award. And I thank you, Your Honor, and your office for having the foresight and the courage to create and sustain such an award. Thank you. And soon we'll be sharing in some music by some old friends who were also part of those adventures, Neil and Rachel. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you for being who you are. Thank you for sharing the story and the vision of what you have been a part of and what you continue to live and breathe and relate into our community, both here in Winnipeg and beyond. And as you indicated, we now have opportunity for, in the spirit of celebration, in the spirit of reconciliation, in the spirit of taking time to ponder. I invite Neil and Rachel as our musician guests who have been part of our musicians. They've been part of the Lieutenant Governor's award celebrations before. They've also been part of our Manitoba Multi-Faith Council annual general meeting. And we are very much appreciative of your presence, your gifts, and your talents, your music to be shared now.
Thank you so much. Can everybody hear us okay? We're having a few little technical difficulties, but I think that if you can hear us now, we'll be good to go.
May the peace of Christ be with you. May the love of Christ dwell deep in your heart. May the Spirit enlighten your way. May you walk in the comfort of God's care. May the grace of God be with you. May the love of God dwell deep in your heart. May you walk in the light of God's way. May you live in the comfort of God's care. Kyrie sutono hiwaga watashito jino kokoro no sumizumi ni made yuki wa tarimasu yo uni. Deep within the heart of man, there lives a still small voice, ever singing clear and strong. Let its wisdom guide our choice to listen with an open heart, though you may not agree, to honor every race and creed, to embrace humanity. I feel a change today coming on the wind. Where do we go from here? I feel a change today. Let us now begin to move beyond the fear. The hand outstretched that lifts us up is the grace that sets us free. I'll hold you in your time of this? What sweet music that will be. I feel a change today coming on the wind. Where do we go from here? I feel a change today. Let us now begin to move beyond our fear. I am an instrument of your peace. I offer these hands and pray their service never cease. I feel a change today coming on the wind. Where do we go from here? I feel a change today. Let us now begin to move beyond the fear. I feel a change today. It's coming on the wind. Where do we go from here? I feel a change today. Let us now begin to move beyond the fear. Where do we go from here? The change we seek is
Thank you, Rachel and Neil, for your amazing performance. Such a befitting presentation for a befitting individual. I know when I reached out to Neil first to ask to perform in this event, he said yes first, and then he asked, by the way, who's the nominee? And when I mentioned Bill's name, he was doubly excited because of the history that Rachel and Neil have, and the relationship that they have had for many years. So I know this was also a very special moment for both of you. Once again, thank you for that. And thank you, Bill, for your moving and thoughtful remarks. Allow me once again to congratulate you on behalf of the MMC board on your very much deserved award and recognition. As a fellow resident of Central Park 35 years ago, when I was a newcomer to Canada, listening to the story of your life service confirms to me that the more we promote the virtues of cooperation and mutual assistance amongst us, the more human society will advance in progress and prosperity. I hope events like this will inspire us to transform our lives, our neighborhoods, and communities with action that promotes the unity and betterment of our society. It is heartwarming to see so many joined here tonight for this wonderful event. I would also like to take advantage of this event and at this point to ask all of you that in case you know an eminent and distinguished individual that you think would fit the details of this award, please keep that in mind and connect with the MMC board for the future nominations and presentations. We would love to hear back from you. Friends, last year at the end of my remarks for the same event on Zoom, I mentioned that I hope next year we would get back together in person at the government house. To be honest, I was almost certain that would be the case. Well, once again, my optimism did not affect the reality around me. However, the hope for better times, for better conditions, and a better world are why we are here tonight. So I am going to say farewell now. And one more time, I'm also going to say that I hope to see you next year in person. Good night and God bless.